George or Jorge. Question here. In permaculture, what is the solution for the sufficient production of cereals that can meet the demand of population in place? The world relies on grains. Is permaculture simply ignoring this? No, not at all. It's just that grains easily fit where there's a dormant time of the year, when there's no water, when it's all frozen or when it's all dry. So the deserts and the cold climates are ideal for grain. You have more time in the year when you can process the grain and the stored crop is of some value. Outside of those climates where you don't have that dormant period, grain is really inefficient for the average person who's growing their own food or food grown locally, because it takes a lot to process. I've got a millet here that I'm not growing for food. I could grow it for food. I'm growing it as a cover crop. I can feed it to animals. It's a tiny little seed that brings in wild birds. I can grow maize, of course, here. I can grow sorghum. There are a lot easier foods to grow for the amount of effort you put in, for the amount of return you get in food value. Grains are also easy to, in history, grains have been used to march armies because it is a quite high quality food that stores, and you can travel and march your army on grain. So there's a lot of economies and things that have been built on grains. But it's not the most efficient food unless you are in a desert. There's a really dry period when there's not much else growing and you can process your grain and it's stored, or a really cold climate where you have a really dormant period again because there's no moisture because it's all frozen. Most grains in other climates, there are much more efficient ways to grow the same amount of nutrition. Now here in the subtropics, we've grown wheat, enough to make 60 loaves of bread. Interesting lesson for people, how much work there is in processing it. We've grown barley, and we've grown oats. In summer, we've grown sorghum and amaranth. My wife's from Jordan, so she knows all about processing wheat and barley. But the amount of work you have to do for the amount of food value you get doesn't make it worthwhile. Agriculture, industrial agriculture, has just gone to war on the land instead of marching an army. It is an army of destruction on landscape. So very large areas are put into grain production because it can be harvested mechanically on massive inefficient areas, and it can be transported huge different distances, and it can be processed into all kinds of processed foods which aren't necessarily adding any value to the grain nutritional quality itself. So we've just industrialized grain in all sorts of climates, and then we've based our food system on it. And that's not a very sensible thing to do if you want to energy audit it. So it's not that we've ignored grains, it's just that we've made a common sense assessment and said, well, it's not really worthwhile unless you're in a really cold climate or a climate that has a very dry, usually dry and hot period.